Clean hands.
Elizabeth had always believed that good health did not come from one big decision. Instead, she believed it was built through many small habits repeated day after day. Every healthy life begins with a simple choice. Not a difficult choice, not an expensive one, just a small habit repeated every single day. Elizabeth understood this better than most people. She believed that taking care of her health began with simple daily habits. She knew that even the smallest actions, when repeated every day, could create a big difference over time. One of those habits was keeping her hands clean. Whether she had just finished eating, returned home after spending time outside, or was getting ready to prepare a meal, she always remembered the same important lesson. Clean hands protect not only her own health, but also the health of everyone around her. For Elizabeth, washing her hands was never something she did only once in a while. It was part of her everyday life, just like brushing her teeth or enjoying a healthy breakfast each morning. Every new day, before beginning anything else, she walked toward the sink with a quiet smile. Not because someone reminded her, not because she was forced to, but because she knew she was doing something good for herself. She never thought of washing her hands as a boring chore. Instead, she saw it as one small habit that helped keep her body strong, healthy, and ready for a new day. And every morning, that simple routine reminded her that taking care of herself always started with the smallest actions. But washing her hands wasn't just a quick splash of water. Elizabeth had a careful routine, and every single step mattered. Elizabeth knew that every healthy habit began with a simple first step. She slowly turned on the faucet and allowed the warm water to flow gently over her hands. The fresh, clean water prepared her hands for the next important step. Then she pressed the soap dispenser. A small amount of soap rested in her palm, and within moments, soft white bubbles began to appear. She gently rubbed her hands together, making sure the soap reached every corner. The fronts of her hands, the backs, between every finger, around each thumb, beneath every fingernail, and even around her wrists. She never hurried. She understood that germs often hide in the smallest places. So she patiently cleaned every part, knowing that careful washing today would help keep her healthy tomorrow. Elizabeth knew that washing her hands was never about being fast. It was about being careful. Every second mattered. Every movement had a purpose. So she continued, gently rubbing her hands together, allowing the warm water and soft soap to do their important work. For 30 full seconds, she gave herself the gift of patience. Sometimes she quietly counted the seconds, one by one, letting each moment remind her that good habits could never be rushed. Other times, a gentle little song filled the quiet room. Its simple melody lasted just long enough to help her finish the perfect hand-washing routine. Soft, white bubbles covered every finger, every fingertip, every tiny space that might easily be forgotten. But Elizabeth forgot nothing. She carefully cleaned until she knew that every part of her hands had received the same attention. Finally, the 30 seconds were over. She slowly placed her hands beneath the warm running water once again. The rich white foam began to disappear, flowing gently down the sink, carrying away the dirt and the invisible germs that had rested on her skin. Little by little, her hands became smooth, fresh, and perfectly clean. She looked carefully, making sure no soap remained. Only when she was completely satisfied did she move to the next simple step. Elizabeth gently reached toward the faucet and turned off the water, not because the routine had ended, but because she believed every drop of water was valuable. Taking care of her own health and taking care of the world around her were both acts of responsibility. Then she picked up a clean, soft towel. With slow, gentle movements, she dried each hand carefully, between every finger, across every fingertip, until no trace of moisture remained. Her hands felt clean, fresh, comfortable. She smiled quietly, not because anyone was watching, but because she knew that another small habit had made another small difference. And sometimes those smallest habits become the greatest acts of caring for ourselves. Pause. 3 seconds. But Elizabeth's healthy routine didn't end here, because keeping her hands clean wasn't something she remembered only once a day. It was a habit she carried with her wherever life took her. For Elizabeth, washing her hands was never a habit reserved only for the morning. It was a promise she kept with herself throughout the entire day. Every few hours, she returned to the sink once again, not because her hands looked dirty, but because she understood that many germs cannot be seen. They are silent, invisible, and easy to carry without ever noticing them. So whenever she came home after spending time outside, she paused. Before touching anything else, she washed her hands. Before every meal, she washed them again. After using the bathroom, she followed the very same careful routine. And whenever she helped prepare food, for herself or for her family, she made sure her hands were perfectly clean, again and again and again. It never felt difficult. It never felt like a burden. Because healthy habits become easy when they become part of who we are. Little by little, day after day, this simple routine became a natural part of Elizabeth's life. She no longer needed reminders. She no longer had to think about it. Doing the right thing had simply become her normal way of living. Her hands always looked neat. They always felt fresh, clean, and comfortable. Looking at them filled her with quiet satisfaction, not because they looked beautiful, but because they reflected the care, the patience, and the responsibility she practiced every single day. Her family noticed the example she was setting. They smiled with pride, seeing how seriously she cared about her health and the health of those around her. And without even trying, Elizabeth inspired others to build the very same healthy habit. But the greatest reward could never be seen with the human eye, because the real victory was happening against something invisible. Although Elizabeth could not see germs, she understood that they were always there, too small for the human eye, yet capable of spreading from one place to another. That was exactly why she never underestimated the importance of washing her hands. Every time she carefully washed them with warm water, soap, and enough time, she removed most of those invisible germs before they had the chance to spread. With one simple habit, she was protecting herself, and at the very same time, she was protecting the people she loved, her family, her friends, and everyone whose lives crossed her path. That simple act became something much greater than cleaning her hands. It became an act of kindness, an act of responsibility, an act of love. Because caring for yourself also means caring for others. As the days passed, Elizabeth's hands remained clean, healthy, and ready for every new day. She smiled, knowing that good habits did not have to be difficult. They simply had to be repeated, again and again, until they became part of who we are. And perhaps that is the greatest lesson Elizabeth ever learned. Great changes do not always begin with great actions. Sometimes they begin with something as small as washing your hands. So the next time you walk past the sink and reach for the soap, remember Elizabeth, because one simple habit can protect your health, care for the people around you, and make a difference every single day. Thank you for listening, and remember, healthy habits begin with small choices.